I'm Dr Gary Crotaz, host of the Unlock Moment podcast, coach and award-winning author of The Idea Mindset. In this podcast trailer, I'm going to share with you 3 very special segments from the podcast to bring to life what I'm all about and what you can look forward to as you delve into the Unlock Moment content. Thank you for joining me on this journey. It's really wonderful to have you here. My name's Dr. Gary Crotaz, and I'm a coach, podcaster, and award-winning author of The Idea Mindset, a book about how to figure out what you want and how to get it. The unlock moment is that flash of remarkable clarity when you suddenly know the right path ahead. When I'm in conversation with my coaching clients, these are the breakthroughs that are so profound that they remember vividly where they were, who they were with, what they were thinking when their unlock moment happened. In this podcast, I'll be meeting and learning about people who have accomplished great things or brought about significant change in their life. And you'll be meeting them with me. We'll be finding out what inspired them, how they got through the hard times, and what they learned along the way that they can share with you. Thank you for joining me on this podcast to hear all about another unlock moment. Welcome to another episode of the Unlock Moment. I'm Dr. Gary Crotaz. I want to start this one slightly differently from normal. And firstly, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you in the more than 60 countries around the world who are listening and subscribing to the Unlock Moment and mentioning it to friends and colleagues who you think would find it interesting or insightful. We more than doubled our downloads in January compared with December and are on track to grow another 25% in February. Apple has just picked the Unlock Moment as one of its 20 recommended podcasts in the category of career moves. That's a huge deal. Honestly, thank you. We couldn't do it without each and every one of you. Today's episode is with someone you've probably never heard of, but Beatrice Zorneck is genuinely one of the most fascinating and insightful thinkers I've come across in recent times. And it's why I asked her if she would come and record with me. If you've listened for a while, you'll know how much I enjoy spending time with people who are figuring things out in the moment, and it's a privilege to be able to witness that deep work in practice. You'll hear an extraordinary personal journey. You'll learn something about giving your brain the space and time to do the thinking it needs to do, and you'll see the powerful impact of letting go of the constraints that are defined by society to forge your own path. Here's a short extract of just a few highlights of this amazing interview with Beatrice Zorneck you're about to hear on the Unlock Moment.
I remember perhaps those were images that weren't suited for a 7-year-old to see, but I remember going to the center of the city, and it was I can still very vividly remember, it was a very grim image. You know, there was a lot of sacrifice from people to stop communism, and you know, the buildings were destroyed, there was a lot of blood everywhere, and that's an image that's just imprinted in my mind. And she says, well, if you could do anything, you know, magic wand question, and money was no object, what would you do? And in that moment, I just blurted out and I said, I would do what you do. And then I just put my hand over my mouth as if I was trying to put the words back into my mouth. But of course I couldn't, because they were already out. And I was just holding my hand over my mouth. And obviously the words were just sinking in the space as I was doing that. And that was a really, really powerful moment for me. I think we live in a world where I think we don't realize how much we're taught to think and what to believe and what's right and what we should do. And we do all of that, and we're told that if we do all of that, we're going to be happy, and then there's still something missing. And I think those moments of raw, almost childish authenticity are so powerful, yet so terrifying. To say, this is my path, and my path is not the path that everyone else expects of me. There's something extremely scary of not fitting in, of digressing from the beaten path that's been laid ahead for you. You were saying about how I'm thinking in the moment, and it's so interesting that just having this conversation with you in a way feels very exposing, but in a really powerful and authentic way. And I feel that, the questions you're asking me, they're questions that I don't think anyone has asked me. I feel like you just have this, there's this profound curiosity about understanding the human in front of you. And I think what's happening for me is that I'm just resonating with that, and I feel just so open to check what's in there as you're asking me these questions. But I think there is something special, and there was something special for me in hindsight, of course, not in that moment. In hindsight, being in that moment down on my knees and realizing that I needed to make a drastic change, because in that moment I just surrendered and I became open because I had just nothing else to lose. And I think that gives us an immense amount of courage.
Hi, my name's Dr Gary Crotaz, and I'm the host of the Unlock Moment podcast, now downloaded in over 60 countries. The Unlock Moment is that flash of remarkable clarity when you suddenly know the right path ahead. Listeners to this podcast are discovering their own unlock moments by bearing witness to the stories of others and by learning from experts on coaching, psychology, and motivation. Every lock needs a key, and for you to discover your own unlock moment, you're going to need to find the right key for you. That's why I created these Box of Keys episodes, little ideas that might help you find your own moment of remarkable clarity. Welcome to my Box of Keys. You can't think to a deadline. It's a phrase I wrote in my book, The Idea Mindset, about how to figure out what you want and how to get it. But what does it mean? We're used to setting deadlines for tasks that we're doing. Finishing the laundry before Monday morning, getting that report ready for the big Thursday meeting. But when it comes to the big thinking we need to do to figure out the path ahead, we need to take time. If you set a deadline for figuring something out, then you're not allowing your ideas to properly percolate. When I'm working with my coaching clients, sometimes the fog lifts quickly and the path ahead is clear. But at other times, it can take many weeks or months, sometimes even years, to figure out the path, especially when it's a radical change in direction or a path that others might not agree with. You have to give your brain the space and time to do the thinking it needs to do. So remember, you can't think to a deadline. Take your time. That's the thing about unlock moments. You don't always see them coming, but you definitely know when they've arrived. Have a good week. This has been the Unlock Moment Box of Keys with me, Dr. Gary Crotaz. Thank you for listening in. You can find out more about how to figure out what you want and how to get it in my book, The Idea Mindset. Find me on Instagram at Dr. Gary Crotaz and subscribe to the Unlock Moment to get notified about future episodes. Most listeners to this podcast on Apple and Spotify haven't yet hit the follow button. If there's one thing you can do right now to help me out, then please click the follow button. The more followers I have, the better guests I can attract for you to learn from. Thanks again for listening, and join me again soon here on The Unlock Moment.
You talk about intimacy of a podcast. I have people who say, "Oh my gosh, Mike, I'm listening to you right now." Or, "You're always with me on my walks," or, "I take you with me when, I mow the lawn." For me, earlier today, I was hanging out with my friend Jim Collison, who also did this podcast with me. I never did an episode alone. And Jim and I I called him specifically because I met with a brand new client who I realized very quickly was only new to me. I was not new to them. And I can usually tell when they do a double take, and then because it's over Zoom, and then they'll sort of back up and be like, "Oh my gosh, can you say my name?" And
Can I record it as my
ringtone? Exactly. Or they'll say something like, "My friends are not going to believe that I talked to the Micah." I'm like, well, how many Micahs do you know? It's not that hard to feel like Micah's a special thing, but this person had told me really deeply what our podcast had meant in their life during a really difficult time. And they told me in ways that I didn't set out to create in the world, and I never even thought could happen.
The regular listeners will know about my obsession with individual words. And the one you used was freeing or freedom. What does freedom mean for you?
Well, guys, that's the pursuit. That's the end goal. That's what I'm still trying to catch. I think freedom means having how about this? Taking the permission that you've already been given and owning it. And I think, early on when I first started exploring leaving my corporate job and going out on my own, a good friend asked me what I thought I would gain. And my first reaction was freedom. And she asked me, I'm like naked under a sheet in the dark, looking up at white Christmas lights that are supposed to make me feel better about where I am. And she says, "Micah, what is going on?" And she said it that way. And I remember thinking, holy buckets, leaving my job did not find me freedom. In that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, I thought I was leaving for freedom, and I trapped myself right away again. I was still feeling anxious that if I didn't answer my email, then I maybe would have promised something to somebody that I had forgotten to give. And that's like my biggest fear. It's a dumb fear. Like, Micah, be afraid of spiders or something. But like, poor execution is more frightening to me than spiders or snakes. I was still working from the minute I woke up until after I should have been in bed. I was still valuing my worth by what somebody else would pay for it. And I was still spending a lot of energy worrying about how I was showing up in the world. Meanwhile, you introduced me as a celebrity today, and I was not letting any of that sink in. So that moment for me was realizing, oh my gosh, you can quite literally strip down. And Micah, the solution still is not where you're working or what you're doing. It's how you are approaching what you're doing. And I still have not figured this out. Have you had anyone talk about their unlock moment being nudity before?
This has been The Unlock Moment, a podcast with me, Dr. Gary Crotaz. Thank you for listening in. You can find out more about how to figure out what you want and how to get it in my book, The Idea Mindset. Find me on Instagram at Dr. Gary Crotaz, and subscribe to this podcast to get notified about future episodes. Most listeners to this podcast on Apple and Spotify haven't yet hit the follow button. If there's one thing you can do right now to help me out, then please click the follow button. The more followers I have, the better guests I can attract for you to learn from. Thanks again for listening, and join me again soon here on The Unlock Moment.